The Nürburgring Nordschleife, 20.8 kilometers of pure terror. This is the track that earned its most famous nickname after a race so horrific it became legendary. In 1968, in an apocalyptic rainstorm, Jackie Stewart, nicknamed the Flying Scot, won the German Grand Prix by over 4 minutes. He later described the first lap as driving blind into a great wall of spray. It was a superhuman feat, and after the race, he famously referred to the track as the Green Hell, a name that stuck. In 1976, Formula One abandoned this circuit forever. But to understand why today's drivers still fear it, you have to go back to the records of its golden era. Back to 1961, when Phil Hill became the first to break the 9-minute barrier in an F1 car. To Niki Lauda, who risked everything for a lap time of 6 minutes, 58 seconds. And to Stefan Bellof, who in his Porsche 956 set an impossible lap of 6 minutes, 11 seconds. The ring's final lesson is that talent, technology, and courage mean nothing without respect. It is a beast that demands everything from you. And for 7 minutes of immortality, it decides your fate. So, with your foot on the pedal, let's begin the lap. Before the legends, before a single lap was ever run, the Nürburgring was a simple idea: to build a circuit worthy of the world's most dangerous machines. In 1927, they carved 20.8 kilometers of tarmac from the ancient German Eifel Mountains. The track was so impossibly long that it formed its own microclimate. It was not uncommon for the sun to be shining on one end of the circuit while it was pouring rain on the other. This concrete leviathan sprawled across hills and valleys, waiting for someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to attempt to tame it. This beast was not built for crowds or television cameras. It was built as a brutal testing ground, a relentless judge of man and machine. Its first victims were not drivers, but the engineers themselves, who watched as their designs broke and failed against the merciless demands of a track with no forgiveness. From its very first days, the Nordschleife was more than a circuit. It was an ultimatum. It dared the fastest drivers and the most powerful cars to prove themselves worthy. Many would try, very few would succeed. Now, years later, that ultimatum remains unchanged. To understand its power, you must experience what those legends faced, every terrifying kilometer of it. Hatzenbach. After the false calm of the start line, Hatzenbach delivers the ring's first lesson in deception. Named for the small stream it runs parallel to, Hatzenbach is where the mental torture starts. Accelerating from the start line, the first real test arrives. A sequence of sweeping turns that appear straightforward until you're committed at 180 kilometers per hour, and discover the radius tightening with every meter. What seemed like a simple curve transforms into a decreasing radius trap that induces terminal understeer. Your front tires, already at their grip limit mid-corner, suddenly face a tighter radius with no escape. Setup compromises made for other sections leave you helpless here. Too much front wing creates drag on the straights, too little leaves you pushing wide into the trees. You commit to the racing line, hit the throttle at turn in, then realize halfway to the apex, you're carrying too much speed for the exit. It's a trap that's humbled everyone from Jim Clark to Stefan Bellof. No runoff areas, no gravel traps, just Armco barriers backed by German pine trees that have been collecting carbon fiber and aluminum for decades. Jackie Stewart, driving with a broken wrist from an earlier crash, learned this lesson in 1968. He had to navigate the treacherous conditions with a severe injury, making the brutal track even more of a test. The experience haunted him, and he spent the remainder of his career crusading for F1's departure from this track. Reflecting on the profound mental and emotional toll of the circuit, Stewart famously stated, "For a quick lap at the Nürburgring, you've probably experienced more in 7 minutes than most people have experienced in all their life in the way of fear, in the way of tension, in the way of animosity towards machinery and to a racetrack." His campaign eventually succeeded, but not before the Green Hell claimed its final F1 victim. Flugplatz. After mastering Hatzenbach's deception, the track's next challenge is a test of physics at Flugplatz. As its German name, airfield, suggests, this is a section where you fly. The road crests so violently that aerodynamic downforce becomes useless. At the apex, cars generate zero ground effect as they literally separate from the track surface. For one terrifying moment, you're piloting a missile with no aerodynamic grip, no mechanical grip, just ballistic trajectory. The physics here have claimed victims for decades, including 2 former Formula One drivers, John Taylor in 1966 and Gerhard Mitter in 1969, who was killed at the Flugplatz/Schwedenkreuz section. The corner's deadly nature has never diminished. In 2015, a car driven by Jan Mardenborough became airborne at this very spot, tragically killing a spectator and proving that the physics of Flugplatz are as dangerous today as they were in the track's golden era. Yet, this same corner became the stage for a superhuman feat. Stefan Bellof owned this moment. May 28, 1983, qualifying for the 1,000-kilometer Nürburgring. The young German hurled his Porsche 956 through Flugplatz at speeds that violated every principle of self-preservation, setting a time that would haunt Nordschleife for years to come. 6 minutes, 11.13 seconds. 35 years that record stood untouched. Not from lack of trying, but from lack of courage. Bellof possessed an almost supernatural connection to the ring. Where others saw death traps, he found racing lines. He found his rhythm where others found only fear. His onboard footage shows a driver operating beyond normal human limits, extracting performance from sections that should have killed him. The Nürburgring collected its debt 2 years later at Spa-Francorchamps. Bellof died chasing another impossible lap time, but his legend was forged here at Flugplatz, where he proved that genius and madness share the same address. Today's drivers study Bellof's footage with morbid fascination. They recognize the talent, but they also recognize the warning signs of a man who flew too close to the sun. But surviving Flugplatz is only the beginning. The ring's next test targets your mind. Schwedenkreuz. 4 minutes in, this turn delivers the ring's cruelest test. Information overload at 180 kilometers per hour. 174 bends demand perfect recall. Racing lines, apex points, camber changes, braking zones, surface variations. Your brain becomes a high-speed database with zero margin for error. This sequence of deceptively similar fast sweepers has claimed victims through mental fatigue, not mechanical failure. Mistake the entry to one sweeper for another, and you're not just slow, you're sideways. The ring amplifies every miscalculation exponentially. A minor error at Schwedenkreuz cascades into catastrophe 3 corners later, each mistake compounding toward an inevitable reckoning. Mental fatigue becomes your deadliest enemy. The circuit demands perfection while your concentration deteriorates, creating a lethal combination through unforgiving forest. As Sir Stirling Moss famously declared, it is necessary to relax your muscles when you can. Relaxing your brain is fatal. The threat isn't just historical. In 1968, British F1 driver Chris Irwin was involved in a massive accident at the Flugplatz/Schwedenkreuz section while driving a sports car, an incident so severe it ended his racing career. This is why Schwedenkreuz is the ring's cruelest test. It demands total focus from a brain that is being pushed to its breaking point. Bergwerk. After pushing your mind at Schwedenkreuz, you must now face the sheer brutality of Bergwerk. Bergwerk appears unremarkable, a medium-speed right-hander with decent sightlines. Nothing in its geometry suggests the carnage it would unleash on August 1st, 1976. Niki Lauda, reigning world champion, approached Bergwerk at 200 km per hour in his Ferrari 312 T2. Having just changed to slick tyres on the previous lap, his cold rubber found no grip on a slight bump just before the corner. The Austrian's car snapped sideways, slammed into the barriers, and erupted into a fireball visible from space. 55 seconds. That's how long Lauda burned while marshals sprinted across live tarmac with handheld extinguishers. Television cameras captured every horrific moment. The flames engulfing the cockpit, the desperate rescue attempts, the charred wreckage that somehow still contained a living human being. Lauda survived with third-degree burns covering his scalp, lost most of his right ear, and returned to racing 6 weeks later with bandages still wrapped around his skull. His courage became legendary, but the damage to F1's reputation proved irreparable. Bergwerk had been collecting victims for years. Karel Godin de Beaufort died here in 1964. His Porsche 718 veered off the track, and he was thrown from the car, suffering massive injuries. But Lauda's crash carried global television coverage, forcing the world to witness the ring's true nature. Lauda's own words captured the visceral fear the track inspired. Reflecting on the period before his crash, he later admitted to being rigid with fear. Terrified, diarrhea, heart pounding, throwing up, his courage in returning to the track was legendary, but it was matched by his brutal honesty about the dangers. As Lauda said, "I always knew about the risks that I was taking." You had to ask yourself, do you enjoy driving these cars so much that you're prepared to take that risk? The corner that ended F1's most dangerous era looks innocent enough. That deception is what makes it truly terrifying. The Carousel. The terror of Bergwerk is behind you, but now the track demands a different kind of perfection at the Carousel. It arrives like a fever dream. Banking that belongs on an American speedway, transplanted into the German wilderness. But this 180-degree banked left-hander was never meant to be. It was invented by a brazen act of defiance. In the 1930s, famed German driver Rudolf Caracciola discovered a faster way through the corner by purposefully dropping his car's inside wheels into a drainage ditch to gain superior grip. The Green Hells engineers saw this act of madness and, instead of stopping it, paved the ditch with concrete, creating the iconic corner that exists today. For his innovation, the corner was officially named the Caracciola Carousel. This section mocks everything Formula One represents. Your sophisticated aerodynamics, ground effect wizardry, and million-euro engineering become irrelevant. The carousel demands something far more primitive: absolute commitment. The optimal line defies logic. You dive inside, dropping 2 wheels onto the concrete apron while praying your suspension geometry can handle the violent load transfer. The transition from banking to flat concrete creates massive compression forces that modern F1 suspension, designed for smooth, predictable surfaces, simply cannot absorb. Damper settings that work everywhere else become liability here. Execute perfectly and you gain crucial seconds. Hesitate and you're collecting Armco at terminal velocity. Michael Schumacher had a deep respect for this corner. Long after F1 abandoned the full circuit, the 7-time champion returned to this track during promotional events. In 2007, he completed a lap in a Ferrari FXX, demonstrating his reverence for the circuit. He understood that mastering this single corner revealed everything about racecraft. As Schumacher himself said, "The more precisely I can drive, the more I enjoy myself." Yet precision alone wouldn't be enough for the ring's next challenge. Pflanzgarten. Physics becomes your enemy here. Where the carousel demands technical precision, this blind crest demands something more primal. Absolute faith in forces beyond your control. At 180 km per hour, you launch into German airspace with an off-camber landing and a sharp left-hander waiting to collect the unprepared. In 1958, British driver Peter Collins discovered this brutal equation firsthand. Pushing for the lead, he went offline at the crest. His Ferrari somersaulted, and he was tragically killed. For one terrifying moment, your championship credentials, years of experience, and million-dollar machinery mean nothing. Gravity decides your destiny. Straight-line speed becomes irrelevant. Late braking won't save you. The landing reveals everything about a driver's character, perfectly captured by Jochen Rindt's famous words, "At Lotus, I can either be world champion or die." Döttinger Höhe. 6.5 minutes of warfare behind you, Döttinger Höhe appears like salvation. The ring's longest straight. Finally a moment to breathe, to process, to believe you've conquered the unconquerable. But the ring's cruelest deception awaits. Döttinger Höhe masquerades as a straight while subtly curving left, tightening as you approach 300 km per hour. At its terminus lurks the final corner before the start-finish line, a seemingly innocent right-hander that has devoured more dreams than any other section. Döttinger Höhe reveals who truly belongs. In 1957, it was the final stage for Juan Manuel Fangio. After a disastrous pit stop that cost him nearly a full minute, his hopes of a 5th world championship were all but gone. He returned to the track trailing the leading Ferraris of Peter Collins and Mike Hawthorne by an impossible 48 seconds. For 3 relentless laps, Fangio pushed his Maserati to the absolute limit, shattering lap records and closing the gap with every single corner. As he entered Döttinger Höhe for the final time, he saw them. With a final inhuman burst of speed, he slipstreamed past Hawthorne and then Collins in a single breathtaking maneuver to snatch victory. Afterward, he commented, "I have never driven that quickly before in my life, and I don't think I will ever be able to do it again." For Fangio, the ring was not an executioner. It was a stage for a final, glorious miracle. He later reflected on his performance, saying, "Nürburgring was my favorite track. I fell totally in love with it, and I believe that on that day in 1957, I finally managed to master it. It was as if I had screwed all the secrets out of it. For 2 days, I couldn't sleep, still making those leaps in the dark on those curves where I had never before had the courage to push things so far. Every meter demands the same respect as the first, because the Green Hell's appetite for destruction never diminishes, and its capacity for glory never ends. That appetite didn't disappear when F1 left. It simply evolved. Today, the Nürburgring is the proving ground for every major automotive manufacturer on the planet. Its public tourist drives attract enthusiasts from around the world, all eager to challenge its unforgiving corners. Even the greatest drivers in the world must still prove themselves here, with champions like Max Verstappen recently earning his racing license on the Nordschleife. There is only one circuit like the Nordschleife, he admitted. On such a long lap, it can be dry in one section while wet in another. That makes it difficult to connect everything together, and that's what makes it so special. Despite the humbling experience, Verstappen emerged converted. To race here for 24 hours in a GT3 car would be amazing. The ring had claimed another disciple. The fear runs deeper than nostalgia or technical challenge. The Nordschleife embodies something modern Formula One has systematically eliminated: genuine consequence. Contemporary circuits are masterpieces of safety engineering, where mistakes result in damaged pride, not damaged bodies. But the ring operates by different rules. Every section carries the weight of tragedy, waging war on drivers' minds across decades. Lewis Hamilton, like many of his peers, ranks the Nordschleife as one of his favorite tracks due to its sheer speed and rich history. But he is also wary of its bite, admitting that the track's dual nature, with long straights and a twisty high downforce second sector, makes car setup an impossible compromise. He emerged from a demonstration lap, in awe of a circuit that proved why F1's past was defined by a kind of courage that bordered on madness. For some, the fear is part of the thrill, a proper test that made drivers feel truly alive. The Nürburgring Nordschleife remains motorsport's most honest mirror, separating legends from pretenders with pinpoint accuracy. Its ultimate lesson, however, wasn't taught on its own tarmac. The track instilled a mindset, a reckless audacity, and a belief in the impossible that drivers carried with them to other circuits. It was a mindset that defined an era of racing, where legends like Jochen Rindt pushed cars to the absolute limit. Rindt, F1's only posthumous world champion, lived by this all-or-nothing approach. He died at Monza, a place where a tragic mechanical failure in an unforgiving era proved fatal. The ring didn't teach drivers how to die, but it forged a generation of men who knew no compromise. And that is a lesson that proved lethal on every track they raced on. This is why it still holds so much power. It doesn't matter where you face your final judgment. Your mindset, your bravery, and your respect for the machine were all made in the crucible of the green hell. And in the end, that is all that matters. If this journey through 7 minutes of hell revealed why even today's champions break into a cold sweat, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which section would break you first. And for more deep dives into F1's darkest chapters, be sure to subscribe.